I cheated on my girlfriend, but everyone took my side.
Weird flex.
I, male 19, met my girlfriend, female 18, through a mutual club in college. At that time, I definitely did not look or dress the best, and I was starting to work on myself for the first time in my life, through the gym, skincare, and putting myself out there. But I had a long way to go. When I saw her for the first time, I instantly fell in love. I couldn't stop thinking about her and was super excited to get closer to her. However, at the time, she had a boyfriend, and I didn't want to come off as weird or anything, so I kept my distance. And by the way, this comes from user PoorPickler123, and if you want to submit your own stories, go to the r/OK Storytime subreddit. I'm Dakota.
I'm Sophia.
And I'm Keon.
And we're here to give good advice goofily, but we don't have all the answers. We just know what we would do. So if you would do something different, let us know in the comments. Still, we became very good friends and eventually hung out all the time. At this time, her relationship with her boyfriend was deteriorating, and we were getting closer and closer. One night when I was tipsy, she asked me if I liked her. Long story short, we ended up hooking up for the first time. It was an exhilarating feeling. I still didn't look that great and hadn't received that kind of attention from a genuinely attractive woman in my whole life. And I was ecstatic. After all, the girl of my dreams had just gotten with me over her own boyfriend. I felt like a king. And we got along great. Like I could really see this girl as one I married. We did everything together, liked the same stuff, and she was genuinely very beautiful. Everything I had thought I wanted in a woman she had. I was completely in love. But as time went on, her mental health spiraled. She still refused to break up with her boyfriend, giving him chances over and over again. This made me frustrated because we also were hooking up multiple times.
You suck. You both suck.
Everybody sucks in this story.
Both of you suck so bad. It makes sense why you're together.
I really wanted her to break up with him so I could be in a relationship with her. Eventually, she did break up with him and said that she really liked me but couldn't do a relationship. Being naive and oblivious, I was totally okay with that. In my head, people always said that, but it would only be a matter of time before she would come around and we'd start dating. Except I was wrong. I grew up in a pretty traditional household with pretty traditional friends, so the concept of claiming to like someone while sleeping around with others was completely foreign to me. It didn't make sense to me. Why would someone say they like you and hook up with other people? So when it happened the first time, I was devastated. It was at a party that I myself was at. I asked her if she wanted to go home, but she said no. When I asked her why, she looked me in the eyes and said that she was going to be busy tonight. I couldn't believe it. When I asked more, she nearly laughed it off. Needless to say, I was absolutely crushed. I hid it from everyone, and she ended up going back home with a guy she had met that night and hooked up with him. The next morning, I threw up a few times. I really thought that I would be in a relationship with her, but I guess not. I talked to her because we were in a mutual friend group, and after we talked, I realized that she had no obligation to only talk to me, so she was free to do what she wanted. Anyways, knowing that didn't change that it hurt like crazy. Then, 2 days after that, I asked her to have lunch with me. She said yes. Then we were sitting next to each other in the library. When I looked over at her computer, I saw her texting a guy asking if he had showered and if his apartment was free. Then she got up and said that she had a commitment and left, skipping our lunch. Turns out she hooked up with that guy. She didn't text me for a few hours. Brother,
just to be clear, what is the relationship status?
Their relationship status is nothing.
Exactly. Nothing. She said, I don't want to be in a relationship with you. Dude, you have literally no say here.
I went to the gym and hit the boxing bags with my bare knuckles. It hurt physically because I felt I deserved it. Why was I letting a woman like this control me? After 7 hours, she contacted me again asking me to come over, and I did. We ended up hooking up. And then I sat and talked with her for a few hours. When she went to the bathroom, her phone was open, and I realized within the span of those 7 hours, she had also hooked up with that guy from the party. I left without saying a word, and she called me a few times, but I didn't pick up. The next morning, I asked to come over to get my stuff and was planning on ending it for good. When I got there, she was crying and zooted out of her mind. She said she was struggling with substance use and her mental health, and that she had been struggling earlier that day. I came closer to her to check her wrists and bandage her arms and took her to the hospital. As I was sitting in the hospital, I noticed marks on her neck, and I hadn't seen those earlier. I assumed it was some form of struggling and sat in the hospital for 5 hours waiting to see what would happen. Eventually, we ended up coming back home, and she started crying again. Apparently, after I had left, she had called her ex and hooked up with him again. I couldn't believe it. I used to truly love this girl.
I
No, you
hate
didn't.
This guy.
No,
I
you
hate
but no
this
you
guy.
no you didn't though. You
You're
really
just
didn't.
obsessed with the idea of her.
It meant the whole world to me that she had liked me, but the fact that she was so easily getting close to these people broke me inside. I was about to leave when she made me wait and promised that she would be exclusive with me from now on, and that she really needed me in her life because she was scared she might not handle things well. Again, this is the first time I liked a girl like this. Even though she had caused me so much pain, I decided to try and believe in her and help her get better.
Ugh.
No matter the cost. She also began having lung problems at this time. Every other week, I would take her to the hospital and sit there while she was getting checkups. When I would hang out with my friends and she would ask me to come back because she was scared for her mental health, I came back. Mostly out of caring, but also because I didn't want her to hook up with anyone else if I wasn't there immediately. It was an absolutely awful situation.
Yeah.
My grades dropped, my social life was falling apart, and I was solely living to help her get back on her feet. Every day after class, I'd come home and check on her, making sure she hadn't done anything drastic or just sat with her and made her feel needed. Most of her friends at this point had abandoned her, so it was just me and her and 2 of her very close friends. This went on for a month until one day she told me that she couldn't be with me anymore because she felt bad that I was doing so much and she wasn't giving anything in return, and that she needed to heal on her own. I desperately tried to explain to her that I could be a part of that. We didn't need to end things. She said she needed space and to be independent, and that after a few months, we could try again. I was shattered. I asked her for one promise, and that was to keep to her word and really work on herself and not be with random people like that again, and to stop misusing certain things. When she agreed, I left, and we stopped sharing locations and just tried to exist as friends. I could barely eat or do anything without crying. It was genuinely awful. You guys just both need help. You guys both need
so
counselors.
codependent.
You're the first time genuinely attractive girl, which is already a crazy
So weird.
sentence,
Yeah, what does that mean?
is into you, and you're like, I'm gonna give my whole life to this other person.
I
Is
can't
absurd.
pick anyone else.
We still talked here and there, but now as friends, and I felt as if I had thrown away that previous semester of helping her for nothing. I went to a party that weekend and nearly had a panic attack on the porch. Zooted out of my mind and completely intoxicated, I called her and texted her several times for help because I had no one to go to anymore about it, but got nothing back. If it wasn't for another girl, what a bright idea that is, I suspect I would have felt really lost that night. A day later, she was driving me back home from the library. She told me she needed to tell me something. That night, when I had called her, she wasn't thinking clearly and ended up getting close to someone she had just met on Tinder. I couldn't believe it. Are you sure? It sounds like she just wants to have casual things with other people that aren't you, and then that's fine. That's okay. You're both teenagers.
As one big anime character says, believe it.
I wanted to stop talking to her and yell at her, but I couldn't. I went to my apartment and cried for hours, wondering where everything had gone wrong. I had given up so much for her, and in 2 days, she had already been with someone else she barely knew. Then she called me, and like a complete idiot, I responded and talked to her. She said that she had gotten her diagnosis back earlier that morning and that she was going through a tough time with her feelings, which sometimes caused her to act in ways that weren't good for her. She said she'd enroll into a mental health institution and begged me for another chance. I ended the call and sat there, not knowing what to do. For 4 days, she came to my apartment in the morning, cooked breakfast, and talked to me. And because deep down I still loved her, I talked back. She started doing things she never did before and promised me that she would do absolutely everything in her power to make me comfortable with her again. She showered me with compliments, bought me things, and she was very open about people who were trying to talk to her or get close to her. As time went on, I became more and more convinced that I could eventually forget all the horrible things she did and take her back. Months passed, and I finally felt ready. And we got back into a relationship. Things seemed great. People didn't know of the things she had done because I hadn't told anyone. They saw us as that couple. As for me, my style got better, I looked much better, and I got into very good shape. I had a tremendous glow up with her. People would come up and say how proud of me they were for how far I'd gotten, especially compared to before. And for a bit, I bought into it. This was what I had dreamed of with her. People loved us as a couple, and she finally loved me. She truly, at that point, was the perfect girlfriend. I could not have asked for more. But the scars from the past still hurt. Anytime I heard the word hook up with or saw it written out, I would get flashbacks to the text messages I had read that night between her and the random guys. So you need to break up with her. You need to not be dating her. You need to not be dating, period. Every time I saw one of them in public, I felt deeply humiliated and ashamed. I tried to fight it for years, but it always stuck deep down. The woman I loved had spent time being close with these other guys on a whim. all while claiming that she had loved me. Obviously, I am aware that, completely ethically speaking, she technically hadn't done anything wrong, but still, I would wake up at night with full-blown panic attacks, not being able to breathe, and throwing up. It was an absolutely disgusting feeling, and I couldn't shake it off. But still, I put my heart and soul into that relationship as much as I could. I planned and paid for our dates, got her many gifts throughout the relationship, and most importantly, spent time with her whenever I could. In fact, I ended up practically moving in with her at one point. To the rest of the world, we were the couple that would make it past college. And I truly believed that, too. Months went by until I decided to study abroad for the summer. I was excited, but also a little nervous. My girlfriend was also a little nervous, but I believed it was because of the long distance. I ended up going abroad, and suddenly things got weird. I was never met with the same enthusiasm over text. The calls weren't as frequent, and she never complimented me anymore or tried to make me feel good. I would do it constantly, but even when I asked, I would be met with laughter and that I was being too dramatic. I started getting in my head again. What if she started seeing someone else? What if she didn't love me anymore? And so, I kept trying over text and call. Meanwhile, at study abroad, I mentioned I had a pretty good physique. This one girl began to openly show interest to me, and regrettably, I didn't stop her. We talked a lot, and it felt really good to talk to someone who felt like they really cared about me. We talked more and more, and my girlfriend got even more distant. I assumed that once we got back, things would figure themselves out. One day I posted my physique on my social medias because I was proud of how I looked for the past few months. The girl from the study abroad sent me a picture replying to it and said, "Open this when you're alone." I faced a moral dilemma that I now feel was God testing me. Should I open it or not? Eventually I gave in, and literally as soon as I opened it, I got a call from my girlfriend. She was breaking up with me. I couldn't believe it.
God said you passed. God said you
Wow.
passed.
I guess in a way God was testing you, and you passed?
And failed at the same time. I don't know how you do it.
By the way, you can be smited with whole plethora of full episodes with stories like this on your favorite podcast app, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen, just search OK Storytime. I was so heartbroken and was devastated. Yes, I made a small mistake, but the reason she was breaking up was not even because she found out. It was because of the long distance. I was shocked. All of our friends and everything, all the dreams that we had made, all the suffering I had put myself through to make things work, it was all for absolutely nothing. At the end, she ultimately gave up on me. I argued for a bit, but ultimately, I saw it from her eyes. She was done, and I had just lost my multi-year relationship. Once our mutual friends heard, they all stopped talking to her. I never told them anything about the above, about what she put me through, or about you cheating on her, but it was well known by everyone around us that I was a good boyfriend to her and that I had really cared about her. All of them viewed her as callous and ungrateful and that she didn't put in the same effort that I had to save this relationship. She ended up having no friends and left the school more alone than when she came. To this day, no one knows about the study abroad girl, even my ex-girlfriend. And that's the end of that story.
You mean the internet? You mean the internet?
We all know.
We all
know that you freaking are a cheater and you suck.
My husband accused me of cheating and claims that our son isn't his.
Well, good news, there's a test for that, Buster.
I, female 34, have been married to my husband, male 36, for almost 17 years, and we've been together for almost 20. We have 2 kids, and our relationship has always been strong. It was rocky when we were younger as we navigated becoming adults while raising a baby, but we never had issues with cheating that I was aware of. Recently, he told me that he wanted more kids, which I already knew, but I was waiting for the right time. By the way, this comes from FunSpring6597, and if you want to submit your own stories, go to the r/OK Storytime subreddit. And I'm Angie.
I'm Dakota.
And I'm Sophia.
And we're here to give good advice goofily, but we don't have all the answers. We're only going to guess what we would do in this situation, but let us know what you would do in the comments down below. OP says, we have been doing great. Spicy sleep is great, and we generally have fun together as a couple. I was recently accepted into medical school. Although it wasn't the school we wanted, it's only a couple of hours away. He has always been supportive on this journey. We talked about how I would have to stop working to take full-time courses, and I was the one with the higher income. Oh boy. We made it work, and he was supportive and encouraging. As a dad, he's amazing. He's loving, attends their school events, and is attentive. But since I was pregnant with my son, who's about to turn 12, I always noticed he was slightly more distant and colder towards him. Still, he generally treats them the same. My son was hospitalized about 2 years ago, and I saw how much he meant to him. He was there all 7 days with him and me, never leaving. We were in a really good place this week. We went to see my new school, hung out, and took my son to an amusement park on Saturday. My daughter had gone out with friends. They had a great time together since I couldn't go on many rides with them. That night, we were watching TV and talking about how when my daughter was young, we had gone to a concert. Then the conversation shifted to who else I had been with spicily, and I said no one ever. He insisted that I had been with someone else. He started saying how one time when we had our first place, I came home smelling like spicy sleep. He asked me about it, and I said it was nothing, and he was tripping. He said he was like, okay, sure, fine. I don't remember this at all, but I know for a fact that I've never been with anyone before him or while I've been with him. Nothing. I kept denying it. He then asked, did you ever sleep with Dan? He was talking about someone who was one of his friends growing up that I knew. I was shocked and then taken by surprise. He went off and said how Dan had spent a few days at our place, and he thinks, based on some things he saw, that we had spicy sleep.
This is like the biggest like red flag. Like this guy clearly cheated on you with like a bunch of people or something.
Yes.
Because you just don't act this way if
Yeah.
you aren't like actually just like super guilty on the inside.
Right.
And you're just like trying to put it on your partner. You're like, no,
Yeah.
it's actually, but you did it too, right? You
Yeah.
did it.
He said that this was around the same time I became pregnant with my son, and he's always thought that it was Dan's kid. I was shocked. I never would have thought that he suspected I had anything to do with someone else, let alone that friend I didn't even remember existed. My son loves an ocean animal that happens to be the same nickname that Dan went by, so my husband said, yeah, and you also buy him shirts and toys about that animal? And I was like, what? He likes that animal. I didn't even think about this. My husband was calm the whole time. I've seen him mad, and I know how he acts, but he wasn't mad, just serious. He said he wasn't reproaching anything, but wanted to know the truth. I was crying the whole time because I felt like I was in trouble for something I didn't do. I told him I wouldn't accept something I didn't do because I didn't do it. Then I said that I was going to do a paternity test on my son because I don't want him to have the slightest doubt. He said no, but I said I would because I don't want this in his mind. After, I said, I don't know where we go from here. And he said, everything stays the same.
Hey, you're not the one who gets to decide that unilaterally, buddy.
Yeah, but I was confused. What do you mean the same? I asked him if everything we've lived these years was real or if it was just a face that he was putting up. He was surprised I asked and asked me what I felt it was. Honestly, I don't think it's fake. I think what we have is real, but I don't know how he can bring this up and everything can be the same. I asked him if he had ever done anything with anyone else in revenge, and he said no. He's a really bad liar, so I can usually tell when he's not being truthful, but he seemed honest. His work schedule is very typical. He's home every day at the same time. At the end of the night, he hugged, kissed me, and said, regardless of what it was, you are my woman, my wife. And I said, no. It's not regardless, because I didn't do anything. And that night, he still cuddled with me and hugged me like he normally does. Yesterday, I told him we needed to talk and clarify this because I don't want him to resent me for something I didn't do. My fear is that he holds that against me and then does something and says I can't say anything because I already did something. I told him this. I said that I can't live with this doubt about worrying that he's going to cheat. Then he said he's been living with this doubt. I told him I don't want him to hate me and I don't want to throw this away for something that didn't happen. I said if it were true, then I would accept it, apologize, and go from there, but that's not the case. I said I wanted him to believe me, and he said the reasons he had were evidence to him. He also said, but if you said no, then okay. That is all the doubts I had. He then hugged me tight and said that even if I had said I did do something, he wouldn't have left me. The rest of the day, he was more serious, but still trying to talk and still being affectionate. I asked him why. Why, if that's what he thinks happened, didn't he leave me? If he's so sure, how is it possible he didn't cheat on me? I had a messed up upbringing, and he knows that. He knows I need him to hug me, kiss me, look for me, and he knows that I can't feel rejected. That unalives me. I ordered the paternity test. It arrives today, and I'll send it out so he can see. But it makes me feel really sad that he thinks that I betrayed him because I didn't do it. I know how much it would unalive me to feel he would have done something like that. What do I make of all of this? I'm so confused. I don't even have anyone to talk to about this. My husband is very non-confrontational. He rarely gets really upset, and if he does, he just stays quiet. I know he keeps emotions in. He did say he just needed to get this out, so I don't know if it was something he was holding on to and just now decided to let it out because he felt that our relationship was the most stable it's been. The conversation didn't come completely out of nowhere. We were watching TV and reminiscing about a concert we went to when our daughter was younger. My husband then asked if I had ever gone to a concert at the same park with a friend of mine who used to drive a Mustang, who I had already told my husband about way back when we got married. This friend was in love with me, so I stopped talking to him. I said no, and then he suddenly shifted the conversation and asked if I had ever slept with anyone else, eventually asking about Dan specifically.
Again, we're back on this again? We're back on this again? Come on.
For context, when I was about 14, I was dating my husband online. What? We hadn't even met in person. During that time, his friend told me a bunch of lies about him, and I briefly stopped talking to my now husband and dated his friend for like a week just to piss him off. We went to a birthday party and saw him one day. The most that ever happened was a kiss. Then I realized that his friend was lying, stopped talking to him, and eventually got back with my husband. We then met in person, and things went from there. My husband already knew this since it happened. During our conversation the other night, my husband said that he saw how I used to drool over Dan back then, which wasn't true, and that his suspicions started when Dan briefly stayed with us before I was pregnant. He said there were 2 specific things that made him doubt. One time, I came home smelling like spicy sleep, which I don't remember at all. Another time, he stepped out to take the trash, and when he came back, I was running into our room to change from shorts to pants while his friend was in the kitchen adjusting his pants and doing the dishes. Since Dan had just recently gotten out of jail, he was in need of spicy sleep. Lastly, he said he saw me as someone who flirts. He brought up a work Christmas party years ago where we greeted a guy who hugged me when saying hi to me and my friend. Later that night, he saw that guy dancing and spanking my friend. Years later, we found out that this friend actually cheated on her husband, so he was like, "What's not to say you also slept with him?"
I don't know, because I'm not her. I don't know. Are you confused on who your wife is? Did you think you were married to the woman who cheated on her husband? Because that's not who you were married. You were married to me.
The paternity test kit arrived, but when I handed it to him, my husband declined. He said he doesn't need it, that bringing it up was more about finally voicing something that he had kept in for too long.
He's like, no, I don't want solutions. I just want to complain like a little baby. And make it your fault.
I truly believe this doubt may have stemmed from something Dan said years ago to one of our mutual friends. Dan has a history of dishonesty and manipulation, so it wouldn't surprise me if a careless comment planted a seed that grew over time. Then, with what he thinks he saw, he put it all together in his mind. But that doesn't excuse the pain. This post, like anything online, only shows a fraction of the full story. Real relationships, especially long-term ones, are not all black and white. While this moment has been incredibly difficult, there's also been so much love, growth, and support in our life together, especially for our kids. It's impossible to label someone as good or bad based on one chapter. I've said before that I noticed a difference in my husband's relationship with my son, and I want to clarify. It wasn't neglect or distance, but more of that subtle tension that can happen when a dad feels left out when his son grows very close to their mom. It wasn't harmful, but looking back, I can see how important it is that they continue strengthening their bond. He said he wants to repair this, and so do I. But no, things are not back to normal. They won't be until we've worked through this in counseling and had the hard, honest conversations. Therapy is now a priority for us, not just for our relationship, but for the well-being of our family. We both agree that we owe it to each other and our kids to try and fix it before walking away from something we've built together. To those who asked, yes, I've always had a very close and loving relationship with my in-laws. Still, this is something only he and I can work through. And something that only you can do is listen to full episodes with more stories just like this one. Just go to Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your favorite podcast app is. We're on it. Just search OK Storytime. But we have a little bit more to the story. And yes, for those wondering, I'm still going to medical school. There's no way in heck I won't go after all the hard work I've done to get there. I didn't make it this far to just make it this far. Nothing changes that. Whether he's beside me or not, I'll walk this path. I love my family, but I love my kids enough to protect our peace and grow through whatever we need to. I'm also self-aware enough to admit that I struggle with insecurity. I check in often, track locations, and yes, I need a lot of reassurance in relationships. So while I know anything is technically possible, I've never seen a sign of cheating. I'm not naive, but I know myself. I'm not someone who's easy to lie to, and I've always trusted my instincts.
Dude, you know what's
That's the end of that
crazy?
story.
Is I swear to God, it's like 90% of the people people who say that are the easiest people to lie to on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's because they have that.
They're, like,
they
showing
already
you their
hold
weapons.
the notion that they're like, oh, I can always tell when someone's lying.
Yeah.
So then the people that lie to you get away with it all the time because you don't know they're lying to you.
Yeah.
But in your heart, you're like, oh, well, I would have been able to tell.
Yeah.
I secretly had feelings for my wife's cousin, and now she wants me too.
Ooh, looks like you got a crush.
I, 30 male, have been married to my wife, 29 female, for 4 years. No kids yet, but our life together is solid. She's everything you'd want in a partner. Kind, supportive, funny, and genuinely good-hearted. I love her deeply and wouldn't trade our life for anything. By the way, this comes from user Silver Scallion 5385, and if you want to submit your own stories, go to the r/OK Storytime subreddit. I'm Dakota.
I'm Angie.
And I'm Keon.
And we're here to give good advice, goofily. But we don't always have all the answers. We only know what we would do, so if you do something different, let us know in the comments. We share the same values. Love spending lazy Sundays binge-watching nature documentaries, and she has this effortless way of making me laugh when I'm having the worst day. She's stunningly beautiful and my best friend. I've always felt like we were meant to find each other.
Aw.
But there's this thing I've been carrying with me since the very beginning. 6 years ago, I met my wife at a planetarium. We ended up chatting after the show, and I was immediately drawn to her. She gave me her number, and I walked out that night feeling like I'd just met someone special. Here's the cherry on top. Her cousin, 30 female, picked her up after the show. My wife introduced us briefly as she got in the car. I only saw her cousin for maybe 30 seconds, but something about her just stayed with me. When I saw her cousin again at a family gathering months later, it all clicked. She had this magnetic energy, confident, sharp, and a little mysterious. We made small talk, and it turns out we had a lot in common. That was the first time I felt the twinge of what if. Since then, I've only seen her at family events. It's always been perfectly normal and cordial, never inappropriate, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about her more than I should. There's always been this nagging thought in the back of my mind, wondering how different things might have been if I'd met her cousin first. Now, here's where things take a turn. Her cousin has recently fallen on hard times. Job loss, personal struggles, trying to get back on her feet. My wife, being the generous person she is, suggested we open our home to her cousin for a few months while she sorts things out. I haven't said yes or no yet. I've played it cool and supportive because, objectively, it's reasonable and compassionate. But internally, I'm freaking out. So I'm terrified of what this might stir up. I know I love my wife and have no intention of jeopardizing our marriage, but the idea of living under the same roof as her cousin, being around her every day, is making me confront feelings I've spent years trying to bury. I don't know what to do. Do I just suck it up and deal with it? Do I bring this up to my wife and suggest maybe it's not the best idea? Do I need therapy? I hate myself for even being in this situation. My wife doesn't deserve this. She's amazing, and I don't want to let her down, but this whole thing is starting to feel like a ticking time bomb. Is there any harmless way to approach this conversation? And there's an update. My wife's cousin moved in, and things got complicated.
No, wow, didn't see that one coming. Who made it complicated?
What? Do you know who made it complicated?
Oh my gosh, Dora's back? I love Dora.
Correct.
Wait, who was it?
The husband.
Oh.
OP.
I would have never guessed that one.
Aww.
I wasn't expecting to update this, but a lot has happened since my first post. First, thank you to everyone who commented. The overwhelming sentiment was that I needed therapy, not a conversation with my wife about these feelings, and I took that to heart. I started seeing a therapist a couple of weeks after posting. Every session unearths new layers of guilt, shame, and confusion about my feelings. I've begun to realize that my attraction to her cousin was never just about her. It's tied to insecurities, unfulfilled fantasies, and struggles with commitment. As for the living situation, I caved. My wife was so earnest about wanting to help her cousin, and I couldn't bring myself to say no without raising questions I wasn't ready to answer. So her cousin moved in about 6 weeks ago. At first, everything was fine. Her cousin was polite, grateful, and kept mostly to herself. I started thinking maybe I had overthought everything, but beneath the surface, I could feel constant tension. I found myself hyper-aware of her presence, her footsteps in the hallway, the sound of her voice. I hated how attuned I was to her movements, yet I couldn't turn it off. The first couple of weeks were deceptively smooth. I focused on maintaining boundaries and keeping interactions brief, but even then I felt like I was walking a tightrope. Then a few nights ago, everything changed. It was a Friday, and my wife had gone out with friends from work. Her cousin and I were both home, and she cracked open a bottle of wine after dinner. I wasn't drinking. I've been trying to be mindful of boundaries, but she seemed intent on loosening up. We ended up chatting in the living room, and for the first time since she moved in, the conversation veered into personal territory. She talked about how difficult things had been for her, losing her job, ending a long-term relationship, feeling adrift. I listened and offered encouragement, but then she said something that made my stomach drop. Quote, "I just wish I had your wife's life." I tried to brush it off as a general comment, but she kept going. She said she envied everything about her cousin, her stability, her marriage, even the way people gravitated towards her. And then she looked me straight in the eye and said, "She's so lucky to have you. I wish I'd been that lucky." That moment hit me like a freight train. Her words hung in the air, heavy with implication. I felt a flood of emotions, discomfort, guilt, panic, and a terrible fleeting sense of validation. I hated myself for that last part. I froze. Before I could respond, she backtracked, mumbling something about having too much to drink. She excused herself and went to her room, leaving me sitting there in stunned silence.
No. She's going to do the How I Met Your Mother thing.
She acted like nothing had happened. She was cheerful and chipper, chatting with my wife at breakfast as if the conversation had been wiped from her memory. I couldn't shake it. Every interaction with her cousin now feels charged, even though nothing inappropriate has happened. I'm hyper aware of everything, her tone, her body language, even the way she looks at me. I've started avoiding being alone with her, but with her living here, it's impossible to create total distance. Earlier today, she brought it up again out of nowhere that she wishes she had my wife's life. It put me at my wit's end. At this point, I don't know what to do. Therapy is helping me process my own feelings, but the external circumstances are growing more complicated. Part of me thinks I need to insist on an exit plan for her cousin, but that would raise questions with my wife that I'm not ready to answer. Update 2. I asked her what she meant. Then my wife came home. After reading through your comments, I decided to speak to her cousin directly and ask what she meant. I realize some of you think I'm leaning towards cheating or have poor self-control, but you're wrong. I would never cheat on my wife. Not out of obligation, but out of love, respect, and self-control. The hesitation was because I wanted to tell my wife everything without hurting her or damaging her relationship with her cousin based on the one-sided feelings. Things were awkward between us since her comment earlier. I couldn't shake it, so I decided to ask her. No build-up, no sidestepping. I just said, "What did you mean by what you said earlier?" At first, she laughed it off and blamed the wine and stress, but I pushed. I told her it didn't feel casual to me and that I'd been carrying the weight of it all evening, and I needed her to be honest. She got quiet and admitted it. She said she's attracted to me, not just in a passing way, but emotionally and physically. It started with admiring the way I treat my wife and the kind of marriage we have, but over time, those feelings grew into something else. She swore she never meant to say it out loud and that she's been trying to bury it, but being around me every day was making it harder to pretend. I was stunned. I stepped outside for a bit, read through more of your comments, and came to a clear conclusion. I couldn't keep this from my wife. There we go, buddy.
Freaking finally, dude.
We got there.
Finally.
When my wife got home about 2 hours later, I asked both of them to sit down and told her that I confronted her cousin, what she admitted, and how it made me feel. The silence was deafening. My wife asked her cousin flat out if it was true, and she didn't deny it. And that's when it turned into a full confrontation. No yelling, but you could feel the emotion. Her cousin even suggested that my wife doesn't fully appreciate what we have, which led to a heated back and forth. I stayed silent through it all because honestly, I didn't want to be there. After some discussion, my wife asked her cousin to give us space, so she left the room, and my wife walked upstairs. I went up and decided to tell her the full truth, including how I felt, the fact that I've been going to therapy, everything. She was devastated. She even looked disgusted and defeated and said she didn't want to continue the conversation then. I decided to pull an all-nighter in my car. Her cousin has texted me since asking to speak, but I've ignored her messages. I couldn't stand feeling like I was holding this emotional secret from my wife. I did exactly what most of you and my therapist suggested I not do, but I feel so free now. Your therapist suggested you not to do that? I feel like you had to have been lying to him in some capacity. Update 3. I spoke to my wife and discussed everything. Good morning, Reddit. After my last post, I sat in the car for a few hours before returning to my room. My wife was asleep. She was supposed to be in early at work today, but took a wellness day, and I called in a family emergency. We sat down, and she started by saying she appreciated that I had the integrity to tell her the entire truth when staying quiet would have been easier. Her issue is that she felt like I should have told her before she extended the invite to her cousin. We've had a similar situation in the past with a coworker of hers who seemed to be making moves, but we navigated that much smoother. She ended up shutting it down and transferring departments. She said she gets that this situation is more complicated because it's closer to home, but she would have still appreciated the honest truth before we got to this point. She was angry and hurt when I dropped 2 nukes on her last night, but appreciated that I brought it up with both of them there so she could ask questions without interjection. I explained that I really didn't mean to hurt her or drag this out. We had a bit of a cry and held each other while I told her I felt like I betrayed her trust by being indecisive. She reassured me that she understood why I did what I did and didn't expect me to move differently. Apparently, after I went back to the room last night, her cousin left and booked a stay at a cheap motel for a few nights, leaving a note on the bedroom door. My wife still wants to continue the status quo so her cousin can catch herself properly, but I insisted that while I understand her intentions, boundaries were crossed and I don't want her around the house much longer. She was a little annoyed, but agreed. I would be annoyed too, because I'd be like, I thought we just worked through all this. Now you're saying she can't be here?
Right.
You just told me the truth and now it's all out in the open and it's fine. We'll work through it. But you're like, no, we can't. Both my wife and I grew up in extended families, so our cousins are like siblings. She believes in forgiving mistakes, but I feel like she's being too naive with her forgiveness. I love this woman and her optimistic outlook, but I feel like she's allowing the disrespect to pass without addressing it properly. By the way, you'd never disrespect us by listening to full episodes with stories like this on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to podcasts. Just search OK Storytime. This morning, I decided to call her father briefly and explain the situation. He told me not to stress it and that even though I should have had better timing, honesty was the best policy. We both come from single-parent households that broke due to cheating and subsequent lies, so it's always been my motto to lead with the truth even if it sucks. I failed my wife and my family by taking so long to speak about this. My wife and I are okay now, and she messaged her cousin wanting to talk. That conversation is supposed to take place tomorrow, and that is the end of that story.
I finally dumped my boyfriend after he made me feel like his caretaker.
You're not his mom. Trigger warning in this story, there's mention of SA.
I, 23 female, and my partner, 28 male, have had a very few issues up until last 2-ish months. We're doing extremely long distance. We have met in real life. He used to go to my high school. We've been dating for 18 months now and have recently been talking about end goals. By the way, this comes from Antisocial System, and if you want to submit your own stories, go to the r/OK Storytime subreddit. And I'm Angie.
I'm Dakota.
And I'm Keon.
And we're here to give good advice goofily. We don't have all the answers.
Not always.
Not always, but we're gonna try. We're going to guess what we would do in these situations, but if you would do anything different, let us know down below. He's currently living in the northwest of America and has residency, having recently moved in with his elderly parents. I'm living in Australia. We've spoken about where we want to possibly move together, but he's refusing to move or put any energy towards our end goal. I'm the only one employed, working part-time while debating on studying paramedicine. He's unemployed after being injured while working construction, where his old company never reported the incident, and he didn't either, meaning he was let go and is getting no compensation or financial aid.
Oh, that's a
Yikes.
tough spot, dude. I mean, you'd hope you have the wherewithal to at least report that, but construction can get dicey.
Is it the reason that he didn't report it?
No, it's like sometimes it's like if you do end up doing that kind of stuff, it's like you'll never get another construction job in the area again because you're like the guy who
Got
reported
hurt.
the company. It's like they
I
can
see.
run tight,
And now
it's
the
not
opposite
right,
is happening.
but it can happen.
I had to fill out most of the paperwork for him to apply for both the work incident and for him to also have a disability pension. I hounded him to submit it, which he told me that he had sent in, only to find out a month and a half later that he never sent it in. He also is complaining that it's taking too long for me to move to the US, but I think it's unfair that he expects me to pay for this all by myself. The flight, visa, passport, and my own accommodation. I was looking into a 90-day visa to have a court wedding. Then he'd sponsor me, but even then, his parents don't want me moving in even if I marry him. He's also refusing to ever move out of his parents' home. He's always lived with them. I find it exhausting. He's always micromanaging my finances. We have zero shared assets or accounts. Complaining how I bought a new keyboard for my 10-year-old laptop when I moved since my old one broke. The keyboard was $50 to $60 AUD, which is $30 to $40 USD. I've seen his finances. He's a few $1,000s in debt, which I would inherit if we marry. He spends a few $100s a month on DoorDash, Uber Eats, and takeout, while complaining when I eat fast food. He's not wanting to work, refusing to even apply for jobs where he could work at home, and he expects me to be the breadwinner, have kids, and to be the sole caretaker while he works on building his Twitch, even though he never streams or records and seems not committed at all. Would I be the knucklehead if I break up with him?
No.
Should I try to work this out?
No.
Am I overreacting?
No.
I really need advice on what I should do from here. And we do have a half update, it looks.
I honestly believe that in the next like 10 years, 20 years, it's like that's probably building your Twitch or whatever is probably going to be one of the most valuable assets you can have.
Sure.
Because it's like, I don't even know. It's hard to, I don't have enough time to even like roadmap like where I see like entertainment and media like going in the next like couple decades.
Yeah.
But like it could be valuable if and get a job, but build your Twitch, get a job,
Yeah.
but build your stream, whatever.
Sure.
But he's not even doing it.
Yeah.
He's
And
not even doing it.
if you guys like are expecting to have kids and like live together and stuff like that while all he's doing is building his Twitch, it's like, no, dude, that needs to be a side thing. Sure, you can commit to it and like have your time for it, but you gotta do something for
Right.
it. You can't be doing nothing.
Right. It's you
And it
you
sounds like you
can't
would be.
just do that and be like, yes, move to this country and do everything for me while I play video games all day. But I don't even do that.
Yeah, Maybear604 says, don't be with the guy. What a loser. Run.
And the thing about streaming
Yeah.
is it's like we don't play video games all day. This is a stream. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
anyway. That's a whole other. I could talk about that for 3 hours.
So we have a update 1/question mark. I wanted to thank those who commented and DM'd me, giving me insight. I didn't realize how much of a people pleaser I was, but I'll work on that. Anyway, on to the update. My family are all going away for a week, and I've spoken to them, even shown this post to them, and they've all said that they can tell that I'm stressing over it. They asked me to wait until they come back, not wanting me to be alone in a dark headspace if things go south. I still need to figure out what the heck I'm going to say to him, but I'm 90% sure that I'm done. I'll update more once I end things, depending on how that goes. I am also open to any advice for how to go about breaking things off with him, if anyone has ideas or suggestions. I kind of overthink things a lot, and I've felt sick to my stomach at the thought of doing this. So, Wednesday night, I got home from working a night shift and had asked my partner to talk on the phone. Let's call him Jake. Jake answered, and it was about 5 to 6 a.m. for him. I was running on no sleep, 3 energy drinks, and enough caffeine and anxiety to fuel a small car when we called. I explained how I felt. Basically, I started it off by saying that I felt like I was the only one putting energy into the relationship, how he had shrugged me off for almost 2 months, and how it felt unfair that he was micromanaging my finances, my appearance, and my hours at work. He seemed to prioritize video games over me. He was on the call for almost 2 hours with 50 minutes, not an exaggeration, I actually timed it, of silence where he sat saying nothing. I left the call and he had texted saying, "We'll talk in the morning." When we spoke, Jake broke down crying, begging for another chance, saying he didn't realize how badly he had neglected me and how much he needed me. He said he'd change. He wrote up a timeline for things, disability pension applications, attempting to find part-time work, prioritizing his health, fixing his car, and supposedly trying to save to move out of his parents' house.
Don't fall for that. That desire to change needs to come from within.
It's too much change to happen naturally and this fast.
Yeah, you just go, hey, I wish you luck with all those changes you want to make. I hope whoever you end up with can enjoy the person that you become.
Exactly. Because he's just going to go back to his old ways. That's what's going to happen.
Yerp.
He begged for another 3 months. I didn't answer right away and eventually asked if I could think things through. Spoke to my family and some close friends asking if I should leave and how to handle the situation. I called a shared friend, Chris, 24 male, who we both met online, and ended up having a 6-hour call with him. Chris is super chill, and the two had a bromance, it seemed. Chris is very sweet on me, introducing me as his sister, saying that he wants to walk me down the aisle, full hype man for our relationship. We've known him about 2 years, so before we started dating. Chris said that he could tell that I wasn't happy anymore and had heard a few things from other friends about how Jake was talking about people behind their backs, but never mentioned names. I confessed that I had heard similar stories and even had some confirmed. An online friend of ours had a screen capture video of Jake bad-mouthing Chris, which I shared after Chris begged for it. Chris said that he had felt things were off. He's known to vanish offline for weeks or months before coming back. He thought Jake blamed him for an incident that happened this past New Year's. I started drinking a lot, got spiked by a guy friend who threw me in his car. Jake ghosted me for a week the day after it happened when I told him. It wasn't until I sent him proof of my talks screen, police meetings, and the restraining order, and everything that he believed I didn't willingly cheat on him. Oh my God, that is an insane red flag. Insane.
Yeah, put this guy in the sun where he belongs. He needs to be making freaking helium ions or whatever.
Yeah, dude.
Get him out of here.
Ooh. Chris heard from Jake, came back, and called me sobbing and apologizing, thinking that it was his fault. Either way, I had a lengthy conversation with Jake, and I said my heart isn't in this anymore. I explained how I was forcing myself to stay, and how my mind and heart were set when he started crying. By the way, I would cry if you didn't listen to full episodes with more stories just like this one. Just go to Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your favorite podcast app is. And then search OK Storytime. He said he'd leave it to me to take down the social media statuses and posts. He asked if we could revisit the conversation after about 6 months. He hopes he'll have income by then, and I should be finished with a small course I need to take before I can apply to my state's paramedicine program. I honestly haven't cried. I feel like a giant weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I haven't blocked him, but I've deleted all the signs of us having been together from my social media accounts.
You should,
Yeah.
if you cried all, it should be tears of joy, because
Yes.
your life would have been
Rejoice.
so much worse if you had ended up
Yes.
staying with this guy
Yes,
and getting
yes,
married and doing the terrible.
All of that stuff. Yeah.
My wife left me after she realized she's into girls.
Well, what else is she gonna do?
I, 41 male, met my wife online about 10 years ago. We hit it off immediately with lots of chemistry, and we had a string of coincidental overlaps in our lives. Things moved along quickly. By the way, this comes from Castmaster, and if you want to submit your own stories, go to the r/OKStorytime subreddit. I'm Sophia,
I'm Dakota.
I'm Keon.
and we're here to give good advice goofily, but we don't have all the answers. We only know what we do, so let us know what you would do in the comments. And OP says, I moved out of my place into hers about half a year later, and then she moved into mine a year after that. 3 years into the relationship, I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. That was 7 years ago. We bought a house, moved to the suburbs, and tried to start a family, but had no luck. We chalked it up to age, but have continued to try for about 3 years now. Our relationship had some bumps. Her dad is super handy, and I am not. And she felt I neglected my duties around the house with cleaning and fixing things up. She was mostly right. I am not proactive about chores, and she has been vocal about me needing to pull my weight and be more romantic. I am very cerebral and analytic, and mostly lacking in the pathos department. Our spicy sleep life started to atrophy about the time we started trying to conceive. An act of joy and love suddenly became more of an obligation in my mind, and we both got maybe a little too comfortable in the relationship. We started to gain weight, fart in front of each other. No! And all the normal things you learn to live with in a long-term relationship.
Have you not farted in front of your boyfriend yet?
Me?
Yeah.
That's neither here nor there.
I always try not to, but I'm trying to get her to tolerate it. You're gonna have to.
It's
That's a
it's
personal question, Keon.
Is it really?
I can't tell you this information.
I'm very open about it. I have farted.
Dude, this guy farts.
He
I
farts,
fart.
man. He's a farter.
I fart.
But I was still very attracted to her, and she said she was to me as well. However, she was looking for flowers, candles, and loving whispers, and I wasn't offering her those things. So we were both aware of the problems we were facing even before this most recent bump. Last night, she told me that on a recent trip, she met a woman.
I say that the best couple's way to fart in front of each other is you play Guess My Fart,
Yeah.
and
He
you
goes,
got and one person guesses how it's gonna sound. So you go like,
You've never
or
done
you
that?
go like.
I've done that. Carly's guessed it correctly. I've guessed hers correctly. It's hilarious.
Last night, she told me that on a recent trip, she met a woman and they hung out for quite a while. This woman tried to kiss her, and she resisted the advance. But she told me that she had strong feelings for this woman and wanted to kiss her, and is now questioning her identity, and may have always been a sapphic and is only now realizing it. Obviously, that was a lot to process after 10 years together. I do still love her, and I am very grateful that she felt comfortable enough to be honest with me about it. I told her that I was 100% supportive of whatever she's feeling, and that her happiness is my main concern. That is true. I would never want to deny someone being who they feel they are, and I understand that identity is complex and can change even after 10 or more years. I'm not looking to deny her of her true feelings. Shortly after, I asked if she had any contact with this woman since that night, and she said she had. They had texted and talked on the phone. I asked if she would be comfortable with me reading these texts, and she said she had deleted them. Hearing that, I told her that I was not comfortable with her staying in contact with this person. My feeling is that I fully support her identity in whatever form, but that our marriage is an agreement of loyalty and trust, and I felt this breached that bond. If she indeed needs time to work out her identity, then I will be there for her. But I think we should work it out together and not with an interloper involved. Her talking to this other person felt like a betrayal, but I'm curious to see what a counselor would say. We're going to a relationship counselor as soon as she gets back from her most recent work trip. We've been talking constantly, though I feel mostly hurt, and so I do not have much to offer until she figures this out. Thanks for listening. I needed to get this off my chest, and until we meet the counselor, I do not want to involve friends, family, or coworkers. Yes, we work together too. Comment 1 says, you're being very sweet and understanding, but this isn't just a story about your wife discovering who she is. This is a story about a man potentially losing his partner of 10 years. For someone who identified as cerebral and unemotional, you're exhibiting a staggering amount of empathy here. Be careful that it's not at the expense of your own happiness. If your wife was texting another dude, how would you feel? She doesn't get a pass just because it's a woman. Be confident in your own boundaries here. OP says, I think you're missing the point, which is that I am drawing a boundary. Identity can be explored within the context of a relationship. My line gets drawn when a private relationship is forming on the side. Now, I concede that the pathway is rather narrow for this since there's only one woman in our relationship, which is why it's either explore identity with me or completely without me. Reply says, this is a healthy attitude. It's important to keep sight of the fact that identity does not justify cheating. If your wife no longer wants to be with you, OP, the person, then she needs to leave. There cannot be any exploring identity if that means spicy sleep with other people when you're still within a relationship. This is the sort of thing that counseling is great for, to help you and your wife both work out where you stand and where to go from here. Comment 2 says it could be a multitude of things. Maybe she's sapphic, maybe she's bi, maybe neither, maybe any of the above, and the added mystery and excitement to a new relationship, or simply feeling wanted by another made her tempted. It sounds like she might be bored with her relationship with you, and here is this woman who she is building up, who might give her the candles, flowers, and whispering sweet nothings, and put effort into the relationship. And there's a bunch more comments, but do you have any thoughts? Let's take a pause there.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you guys don't find a way through counseling, I don't know. I just think it's someone realizing, like, I like women.
Yeah.
And you're not one.
And you're not a woman.
You are not women.
And I think that OP's got the right attitude. It's like either, we explore this together, or you realize that you're not attracted to me and you don't want to be in a relationship with me and you want to explore something else.
Yeah.
In which case we end this relationship. And that's it.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where you can be supportive as you can, but
yeah, it still
being
has to be
fully
respectful
supportive
to yourself.
might mean the relationship is over.
Yeah. OP says, I think this is accurate and reinforces what I think may be happening. She's very attractive and a lot of men approach her, but perhaps the masculinity is toxic to her. A woman who understands a woman will have a different approach, and so she may be responding to it when normally she is shut off or defensive. She comes from a strict household too, though, so perhaps this has been buried the entire time and only now manifesting. That's where the therapy comes in, I think. Update. Let's get into it. The day she left for her work trip, I felt the first waves of paranoia and jealousy. When we talked that night, I asked her to make sure she understood how important it was for the sake of our marriage and my well-being to not break her promise to not communicate with this other person. I asked for us to get through counseling before she resumed contact. She said she knew and that she would not. I really think she's going to do it anyway.
Really feels like she's going to do it anyway.
She's going to do it anyway. 2 days later, she returned and was home when I got back from work. After we ate dinner, we started to discuss our future. Soon into that conversation, several truths were revealed. The contact between them had been nearly constant since the Vegas encounter.
Yikes.
There was more than a feeling. There was making out and kissing.
Double yikes.
The contact was still happening. The last truth was the thing that will now lead to our divorce. The infidelity is bad, maybe unforgivable in and of itself, but the violation of trust and the manner in which my wife of 7 years has disregarded my feelings is the most painful part. She's been saying I didn't have a choice, and in terms of her spicy proclivity, that may be true. But the choice to act on those feelings was hers. She was not interested in an open relationship or a threesome. I asked more out of curiosity than anything. I also did not want those arrangements. In learning more information about the relationship, I found out that there is a large age difference. The woman is 28. There is already talk about living together, having kids, IVF, and even whether I would donate for the F.
What's the joke
For
about
the IVF.
lesbians going fast?
Yeah, wow.
Yo.
Hey. To even bring up that you, I don't know, like asking you to donate for IVF is insane. Like they're cheating on you.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy.
The thing I was not prepared for was when 15 minutes later, she was on her phone booking a one-way flight out of town to go see the person the next day. I am still in a bit of shock over how cold and insensitive that was. But I'm in a bit of shock about how easy it is to listen to full episodes of stories just like this if you go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or iHeartRadio and search OK Storytime. There is a little bit left to this story. Any final thoughts?
Don't give her your baby juice, and I'll see you at the gym.
Yeah, we're divorcing. You want to be with this woman. I gave you my boundaries. You just knocked over all of them. And there it is. And that's that. And it sucks. The next morning, she left to be with this woman. It's been several days since she's been gone. We've talked, though, mostly about what is happening with regards to our marriage and general plans about selling our house. For a few days, she refused to seek counseling, but last night she promised to move forward with it. It's hard to trust that it will happen when so many promises have been broken lately. My wife is a sapphic. I'm fine with that. It hurts to lose her and to be abandoned by the person you thought you would spend the rest of your life with. On the other hand, I care for her deeply, and I want her to live the life she thinks she wants and deserves. I am a straight man, and I cannot be married to a sapphic, so I see no hope for our relationship to succeed. Except as friends. The problem is I only want friends that are loyal, and that is a bar. And true, Don't be friends with someone that cheated on you. You don't owe it to them.
Yeah, I don't know if staying friends is the right move here.
Not when she cheated on you.
know?
No, thank you. But folks, that's the end of that story.